chosen ones. This world had a script for you, but you threw away the pen and rewrote the ending. Have you ever wondered why, no matter how many traps they set, you still rose, still saw through the lies, still kept your light? There was once a girl. Let's call her Zion. She was born into chaos. Abuse, betrayal, poverty, and rejection welcomed her before her first birthday cake. People said she wouldn't make it, that she'd fall victim to the same cycles of destruction that trapped generations before her. But something inside her whispered otherwise. Something told her, you weren't made to fit into this. You were made to rise above it. Zion didn't just survive. She didn't just escape. She studied the system, watched how it moved, how it manipulated, how it devoured the weak and coddled the wicked. And guess what, chosen ones? She didn't run from it, she outsmarted it. And in doing so, she awakened. Now she's building her own kingdom. You're not just a survivor, you are a divine strategist. You didn't merely dodge the traps, they couldn't even catch you because you had eyes beyond the veil. Today we're going deep. We're pulling back the curtains on how chosen ones like you were designed not just to endure this world, but to outthink it, outgrow it, and eventually outshine it. So stay with me till the end, because what I'm about to break down will validate everything you've suspected about yourself and show you how to keep winning without losing your soul. As Sun Tzu once said in The Art of War, the greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Chosen ones, some of your biggest wins came from silence, from observation, from spiritual insight, not from reacting. This isn't just a motivational pep talk, it's a divine revelation. You're not here to fit into this broken matrix. You were sent to awaken within it, expose it, and walk in truth while others are still asleep in illusion. So, buckle up, chosen ones. You didn't just survive. You outmaneuvered a system designed to erase people like you. And today, we're breaking down how. Let's get into these 7 powerful signs that you've outsmarted the system and how to keep doing it. Point 1, you question everything, even when it's uncomfortable. The system thrives on silence, the kind that comes from people too distracted, too afraid, or too comfortable to question anything. It wants you on autopilot, mindlessly scrolling, following influencers, voting how you're told, and nodding to every narrative served up by the media. It rewards compliance with temporary validation, likes, promotions, comfort. But you asked why? Not out of defiance, but out of divine curiosity. And that question right there, it's what set you apart from the crowd. Even when asking why made others uncomfortable, even when it cost you relationships, friends who said you were too deep, family who accused you of being a conspiracy theorist, and colleagues who rolled their eyes when you questioned the company line. But deep down, you weren't trying to rebel for the sake of rebellion. You were trying to understand, to seek truth. And not just truth, but divine truth, the kind that comes from discernment, not dogma. You see, what the system fears most is an awake soul, one that doesn't just go along with things for the sake of convenience, one that listens to intuition, a spiritual gift, not a weakness, that inner nudge you've always had, the one that made you pause when something looked off, even if everyone else applauded it. That's discernment, and it's straight from God. Proverbs 3:5. 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. You were never meant to blindly accept what the world presents. You were meant to test spirits, to read between the lines, to challenge illusions. And let's be real, truth is rarely dressed in popularity. Truth doesn't always come with a million views, a blue check mark, or a TED Talk. Sometimes truth is quiet. It whispers in the stillness. It shows up in your gut. It wakes you up in the middle of the night. You felt it when everyone was cheering for things that didn't sit right with your spirit. You felt it when policies, trends, or beliefs didn't match the integrity of your soul. That wasn't paranoia. That was purpose. You outsmarted the system, not by being louder, but by being sharper. While others memorized headlines, you studied patterns. While they reacted, you observed. You didn't just go against the grain to be edgy. You chose a higher frequency. You realized that your silence in the crowd didn't mean you were lost. It meant you were awake in a world that prefers sleepwalkers. And now, chosen one, your vision is clearer. You see how the system was never designed to nourish your soul, only to numb it. But instead of letting bitterness take root, you let wisdom bloom. You learned how to navigate through noise with grace. You protected your peace while others chased approval. You held onto your integrity when shortcuts were being sold like candy. That's why you're unstoppable. Not because you have it all figured out, but because you trust the still small voice of truth. Even when it's inconvenient, even when it's lonely, you've become a light in a culture of confusion, a compass in a time of spiritual chaos. The system can't program someone who listens to divine instruction. So while the world chases clout, you chase clarity. While the system demands conformity, you move in alignment, and in doing so, you've proven that true power doesn't come from fitting in. It comes from standing firm in what's real. They may not understand you now. They may whisper, roll their eyes, or try to label you. But one day the fog will lift, and when it does, they'll remember you were the one who saw it all coming. Keep listening, keep discerning, keep rising, because the system, it never stood a chance against a soul that chooses truth over comfort. Point 2. You mastered the art of silence. Chosen ones, silence is your superpower. The quiet storm the system never saw coming. Chosen ones, have you ever noticed how the system thrives on noise? It feeds on chaos, demands your reactions, and constantly dares you to explain yourself. From the moment you stepped into your divine calling, the world began trying to box you in. People questioned your motives, misunderstood your silence, and mocked your calm. But somewhere along the line, you learned something the world never wanted you to know. Silence is a weapon, and you, Earth Angel, mastered it like a spiritual ninja in a world obsessed with noise. The system, whether it be societal expectations, manipulative people, or corrupted institutions, has always tried to get a reaction out of you. It wants you to over-explain your worth, to defend your uniqueness, to justify your light in rooms that are dim by design. But chosen ones don't come to conform, you come to transform. And one of your greatest transformations was realizing that not every battle deserves your voice. When you stopped arguing with fools, you shifted into a higher frequency. Proverbs 26:4 says, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him." You got that, didn't you? You realize some people aren't trying to understand you, they're trying to exhaust you. They're not confused, they're committed to misunderstanding you. That's why you stopped casting your pearls before swine. That's why you chose silence, not out of fear, but out of strategy. Let's talk science for a second. Studies in neuroscience reveal that silence is not just golden, it's powerful. A 2013 study published in the journal Brain Structure and Function found that just 2 minutes of silence can create new brain cells in the hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memory, and emotional regulation. That means while others were busy shouting, performing, and pretending, your silence was literally healing and rebuilding you from the inside out. Your stillness wasn't passivity, it was preparation. While others were busy trying to be seen, you were doing the inner work. You were in the shadows, growing, evolving, sharpening your sword in silence. And then you moved, not with noise, not with announcement, but with undeniable results. You became the quiet storm they never saw coming. And when you showed up, transformed, glowing, untouchable, the same people who dismissed you were left dumbfounded. Their mockery turned to murmurs, their arrogance turned into awe. You see, the mystery of your silence made you unreadable, unpredictable. They couldn't track you. And the system hates what it can't control, but that was the point, wasn't it? You were never meant to be tamed. You were sent to disrupt, to flip the tables in temples and awaken slumbering souls. You became a living riddle, calm but commanding, quiet but powerful, still but unstoppable. And now the tables have turned. Those who doubted you are watching from the sidelines. They're whispering about how you pulled it off. They're scrambling to rewrite the narratives they built about you. But here's the thing, you don't need their validation. You've already outgrown the rooms that once tried to contain you. So no, don't get bitter, get better. Don't return fire. Stay elevated, because God doesn't just use your enemies to test you. He uses you to teach them. You became their divine lesson. And now they sit in the silence you once mastered, left to reflect on the storm they never saw coming. Chosen one, keep moving in silence. Keep letting your glow speak louder than your words, because your results are louder than any rumor. And your stillness, that's the sound of divine strategy in motion. Point 3, you recognized patterns and broke cycles. You noticed the repetition, the patterns, the emotional reruns that kept playing across generations like a cursed family movie. You saw how broken people repeated the pain they never healed from, how trauma became a form of inheritance, passed down like eye color or last names. In some households, silence became the language of suffering. Rage became routine. Emotional suppression was mistaken for strength. You began to recognize the rituals, not just in your family, but in your community, in culture, in society. And here's what made you different. Instead of blindly inheriting the pain, you paused. That pause was sacred. It was powerful. Because in that still moment, something rare happened. You became aware. Most people don't pause. They don't ask questions. They react instead of reflect. But you observed. You studied the patterns. You watched how hurt people. How children who were dismissed grew into adults who couldn't love freely. How the one who was never protected became the one who didn't know how to protect others. You saw how blame got recycled and responsibility got dodged. And you realized, this doesn't have to be my story. That decision alone, that's revolutionary. Instead of choosing revenge, you chose healing. Instead of lashing out and repeating what was done to you, you chose understanding. And let's be clear, that doesn't mean you excused bad behavior. It means you understood that healing wasn't about letting others off the hook. It was about unhooking yourself from their dysfunction. You didn't choose to be the villain, the martyr, or the victim. You chose to be the alchemist, the one who transforms pain into wisdom. Psychologists refer to this as intergenerational healing. Studies show that trauma can be passed down not just through learned behavior, but even biologically through epigenetics. That means trauma can actually alter your DNA, shaping your stress response, immune system, and even mental health. But here's the uplifting part. Healing can be passed down too. Your choices today can rewire not just your brain, but your bloodline. You are the evidence of divine intelligence in motion. Because while others stayed stuck in loops, running on autopilot, haunted by what they refused to confront, you stepped into consciousness. That moment, you chose therapy over tantrums, prayer over pettiness, growth over grudges. That was God moving through you. Not just to heal you, but to end a legacy of pain. See, strongholds aren't just spiritual, they're psychological. They're patterns that keep people bound, that blind them to their own freedom. And breaking them takes vision, guts, grace. It takes someone brave enough to say, this stops with me, and that's what you did. You didn't just want to feel better, you wanted to be better. You wanted to raise children who didn't have to recover from their upbringing. You wanted relationships built on truth, not triggers. You wanted peace that wasn't conditional. So yes, while others chose to numb the pain or pass it on, you chose to transform it. You became the bridge between what was and what could be. That's not weakness, that's not naivety, that's power, that's spiritual maturity. That's God saying, I chose you to end this. And maybe the world will never fully understand how hard that was, how many nights you cried, how many times you had to forgive someone who never apologized, how many inner battles you fought in silence. But heaven saw it, and your future will feel it, because the loop has been interrupted, the story has been rewritten, and now healing flows where trauma once ruled. You didn't just break the cycle, you became the blessing. Point 4. You use empathy as discernment, not a weakness. The world today often paints empathy as a weakness, an emotional vulnerability that leaves you open to exploitation, manipulation, and burnout. We hear it in the workplace, in politics, even in relationships. Toughen up, don't take things personally, feelings cloud judgment. The system, in all its rigid logic and capitalist grind, labels empathy as a liability. But here's the truth they don't teach in leadership seminars or motivational boot camps. Empathy, when properly understood and spiritually aligned, is not a soft spot, it's a superpower. And for those who've learned how to wield it wisely, it becomes a kind of spiritual sonar, alerting you to the unseen, guiding you through the noise, and keeping your soul intact in a world that often tries to harden it. You, dear empathic soul, aren't just someone who feels too much. You are someone who feels with purpose. You read energy before words. You walk into a room and immediately pick up on tensions others pretend don't exist. You can sense when a smile is masking sadness or when laughter is forced through pain. And this gift, it didn't make you weaker. It made you sharper. The system didn't expect you to turn your emotions into insight. It thought your compassion would be your downfall. Instead, you turned your empathy into strategy. Science backs this up too. Studies in neuroscience show that people with higher empathy have stronger activation in their mirror neuron systems, those brain circuits responsible for understanding others' emotions and intentions. That means your brain is literally wired to sense and interpret the emotional states of those around you. But you don't just absorb emotion like a sponge anymore. You've learned to filter it, to discern, to observe without being consumed. You know now that not everyone who needs help deserves your energy. Not every sad story needs your rescue. You can feel deeply and still set firm boundaries. That's the beauty of evolved empathy. It allows you to pour into the right people and situations, and just as importantly, to pray for the rest from a healthy distance. You no longer give out of obligation, but from overflow. Your compassion is intentional, not reactionary. It's no longer about being liked or avoiding conflict. It's about alignment. Spiritual, emotional, energetic alignment. And here's the kicker. Because of this discernment, you now avoid the emotional traps that used to catch you off guard. You no longer fall for the sob stories that are simply manipulation in disguise. You don't internalize other people's chaos. You can sit in someone's pain without taking it on as your own. You love, but you don't lose yourself in the process. That is power, the kind of power the system can't understand, let alone control. Empathy becomes your shield, not just your bridge. It connects you to others, yes, but it also protects your peace. You now recognize that peace is not the absence of noise, but the ability to stay grounded in the middle of it. Your soul stays soft, but your spirit is no longer naive. You walk in rooms where energy shifts because your presence is calibrated to truth. You don't need to speak loudly or boast to be felt. Your aura says what your mouth doesn't. And the best part? You didn't let the world change you. You changed how you navigate the world. That's strength. That's spiritual intelligence. So when the system tries to label your empathy as weakness, smile quietly, because while they chase power with noise and control, you're out here moving in silence, sensing, knowing, protecting, connecting, and rising. Empathy isn't your flaw, it's your frequency. Keep tuning in. Point 5, you turn pain into prophecy. Every hit the system sent your way, you alchemized it. That's right. Where others saw defeat, you saw transformation. You took every heartbreak, every betrayal, every soul-wrenching loss and turned it into something sacred. You didn't just survive, you evolved. The chaos that was meant to consume you, you turned it into clarity. The heartbreak that was designed to harden you, you used it to expand your capacity to love. That's not just resilience, that's spiritual genius. You see, spiritual alchemy isn't about denying pain or pretending like life hasn't dealt you some heavy cards. It's about facing that pain head on, diving into the storm instead of running from it, and emerging with gold in your hands. The ancient alchemists believed they could turn base metals into gold through a process of purification and transformation. But what if the real alchemy isn't physical? What if it's spiritual? What if the real gold is forged in the fire of your trials? Science backs this up too. Psychologists call this phenomenon post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that people can not only recover from trauma, but actually grow stronger, wiser, and more purposeful because of it. Studies show that individuals who reflect deeply on their struggles often come away with a renewed sense of meaning, stronger relationships, and greater personal strength. In other words, the breakdown becomes the breakthrough. And that's exactly what you did. Instead of wallowing in the question, why me, you flipped the script and asked, what is this teaching me? That one shift in perspective can change everything. When you move from victim to visionary, you unlock a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you. You stop seeing life as something that happens to you and instead recognize it as something that happens for you. That's when the transformation begins. Heartbreak taught you empathy, betrayal taught you discernment, loss taught you to cherish the present, and every single one of those wounds became windows. Windows into your soul, into your strength, and into your purpose. The pain didn't define you, it refined you. Like a diamond formed under pressure, your most radiant self was revealed in the very places where you once cracked. This kind of inner evolution doesn't make headlines, but it's revolutionary. You became the alchemist of your own life, distilling pain into purpose, anger into ambition, and wounds into wisdom. That's not just surviving the system, it's outsmarting it. The very things that were meant to break you became the bricks you used to build your empire. Let's be real. The system never expected you to rise. Society is often designed to marginalize, to dismiss, to suppress, but your spirit, it didn't get the memo. You transcended the limitations placed on you. You made your trauma serve a higher purpose, and in doing so, you lit a path for others still finding their way through the dark. Spiritual genius isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions in the midst of chaos. It's about choosing growth when destruction seems easier. It's about seeing divine design in what looks like disorder. And that's what makes you different. That's what makes your story powerful. So the next time life tries to throw you off your path, remember what you've already conquered. You're not just a survivor. You're a spiritual alchemist. You turned the system's strikes into steps and the enemy's tools into your tools of transformation. You didn't just walk through fire, you became the fire. And now, you burn with purpose. Point 6, you didn't let labels limit you. They called you too much, too sensitive, too intense, too quiet, too different. Isn't it something how the world tries so hard to box you in? The moment you start showing signs of depth, emotion, or individuality, it sends alarms ringing for people who only understand surface-level living. They wanted you to tone it down, to shrink, to edit yourself until you fit into their narrow expectations. But you didn't. You didn't let their labels become your limits. Instead, you used every misjudgment, every misunderstanding as fuel for transformation. Let's get real for a second. Being too much simply means you possess a magnitude others couldn't handle. Too sensitive? That's emotional intelligence, something even the greatest leaders are still learning to master. Research in neuroscience proves that people with heightened sensitivity often have more active mirror neurons, making them more empathetic, more aware, and more intuitive. That's not a flaw, it's a spiritual advantage. Too intense? That just means your fire is real and your passions are unfiltered. You feel deeply, care deeply, and live intentionally. People who live lukewarm lives will always be uncomfortable in the presence of someone blazing with purpose, and then there's too quiet. That was their way of trying to decode your stillness, your reflective nature. But let's not forget, quiet people observe, they study, they calculate, and most of all, they remember. Your silence wasn't emptiness, it was strategy. Studies show that quiet thinkers often process more deeply and make more impactful decisions. You weren't withdrawn, you were just aware. And of course, too different, the classic branding they slap on anyone who dares to break the mold. Different isn't defective. Different is divine. What they saw as strange, God saw as set apart. And instead of bending to fit their definitions, you outsmarted the entire system by refusing to be defined by it. You didn't fight to belong where you were never meant to blend in. You elevated. You stepped into a higher calling. You let God rename you. And that's where the real story begins. Because when God gives you a name, no human opinion can override it. He called you chosen, not picked out of a crowd, but handpicked before time began. He called you anointed, not for show, but for purpose. And he called you set apart, not because you're better than others, but because you were created for something that doesn't require comparison. In the scriptures, names carry weight. Abram became Abraham, Sarai became Sarah, Simon became Peter. Because God doesn't just call you, he redefines you. So now you're standing in a place they swore you'd never reach. You became everything they said you couldn't, not out of spite, but out of alignment with destiny. The same people who once mocked you are now watching in silent awe. And you didn't gloat. You didn't seek revenge. You simply walked in your truth. Because healing is louder than hate. Growth is the best clapback. And purpose makes all the noise you'll ever need. The system underestimated the power of the one they dismissed. But God didn't. He saw the blueprint before they saw the flaw. You outsmarted the narrative by choosing not to believe it, and in doing so, you didn't just survive their labels, you transcended them. Point 7, you realized you were the system's glitch. Here's the wild truth, one they rarely dare to whisper, let alone shout. The system was never designed with you in mind. It was built like a machine, a slick and polished one, engineered to keep people on a loop, obedient, distracted, and docile. From the moment you were born, you were fed a script. Go to school, follow the rules, never ask too many questions, don't dream too loud, and whatever you do, don't wake up. But then, you did something radical. You woke up. Your awakening wasn't loud at first. It started as a feeling, like a splinter in your mind. Something about this life didn't sit right. The news sounded more like noise, the routines began to feel like rituals, and you started questioning everything. That questioning, it wasn't a glitch in your system, it was a glitch in theirs. You weren't supposed to unplug from the illusion. You weren't supposed to break the mold, but you did. You stopped being a passive consumer of culture, entertainment, and opinion and started creating your own path, your own meaning, your own rules. You stopped obeying fear like it was a god and instead started moving in faith. Faith in your intuition, in your divine purpose, in a higher power that whispered truths the world wanted you to ignore. Your clarity became dangerous. Your peace, unsettling to those who profit off panic. Your joy, a revolution in a world addicted to misery. And your purpose, your mission, that's something they'll never understand because it wasn't programmed into you, it was placed in you by God. That divine fire you carry doesn't flicker with trends or waver with pressure, it burns steady, eternal, undeniable. You see, when the system can't predict you, it can't control you, and when it can't control you, it starts glitching. People like you break the loop. You inspire others to question, to rise, to think, to feel. You spark awakenings just by existing authentically, and that's more powerful than any algorithm, any institution, or any fear-based narrative being sold like truth. In a world that wants everyone the same, your difference is your defiance. While others scroll endlessly, you meditate. While the world reacts, you respond. While some chase status, you seek purpose. That's why they can't decode you. You are not of this world's programming. You are heaven's update in human form. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to disrupt, to elevate, and to remind others that the system isn't reality, it's a suggestion. And you, glitch and all, are the beautiful proof that waking up is not just possible, it's divine. Chosen one, your survival was never about luck. It was divine strategy in motion. You navigated a world that was never designed for your elevation, yet you rose. How? Because you were guided by something greater. You paid attention to the whispers others ignored, trusted the gut feelings that defied logic, and walked away from what looked stable but didn't align with your soul. That wasn't random, it was alignment. While others conformed to the script handed to them, you tore it up and wrote your own. You didn't just break the mold, you redesigned the entire program. That's why your glow confuses those who once tried to dim it. They can't figure out how you made it, but you know. God did. So stay sharp, stay spiritually tuned in, and keep walking in your truth. The real revolution, it doesn't start with the world, it starts with you.